I see $400 going towards my student loans, and I see $545 going for HOA, and I see groceries averaging about $150 a week.
I don't feel it. I don't doubt that it's gotten better, but nothing necessarily feels like it really got easier on us. I don't feel like I'm getting a break in.
From shrinking savings to skyrocketing credit card debts, everyday Americans are being squeezed financially from all sides. In this video, we'll be unraveling some hard truths by revealing 10 signs that show how Americans are financially ruined. At number 1, record household debt. American families are struggling financially. Factors like inflation and the rising cost of goods have forced millions of Americans into debt. According to the Federal Reserve, Americans racked up more debt than ever this year, and a growing number of households have fallen behind on payments for several types of loans. In 2024, the total household debt reached an all-time high, currently sitting at well over $17 trillion. That's an average of $104,000 per household. Between the last quarter of 2023 and the first quarter of 2024 alone, the debt increased by almost $200 billion. As household debt increases, more and more people are falling behind on payments. The debt situation in America has never been higher, proof that Americans are finding it harder than ever to survive. Americans are being forced to amass huge levels of debt to pay for basic utilities such as groceries and gas. Faced with rising interest rates and prices of goods, Americans are falling behind on debt payments, making a bad situation worse as the debt levels continue to rise with no end in sight. Number 2, most Americans now live paycheck to paycheck. Things are so bad that most Americans live from paycheck to paycheck. Covering their monthly expenses is now so expensive that they barely have any money left over for savings. According to some studies, over 60% of adults live paycheck to paycheck, including 44% of those that make $100,000 annually. According to a Bank of America Institute study, 26% of households use 95% of their salary to cover essential expenses like housing, utilities, insurance, and groceries. About 30% of families only have 10% of their pay left after the monthly bills are paid. Even those with incomes above $150,000 are affected, as around 20% of them reported feeling the squeeze every month as they struggle with increased costs of high mortgage payments, insurance, utilities, and property tax. You know things are bad when even middle-class earning families are living from paycheck to paycheck and struggling to pay bills. Number 3, lack of emergency savings. The never-ending struggle with the rising costs of goods, inflation, high interest rates, and stagnant wages in today's economy has forced many families to deplete their savings. Surveys show that 62% of adults feel they are behind on emergency savings, while 27% have no savings at all. Americans are struggling, and many of us are not prepared for an unexpected financial emergency. That's not an opinion, but a fact. 37% of Americans are unable to cover an emergency expense of $400, and only 44% of Americans say they can afford to pay an emergency expense of $1,000 from their savings, according to a survey by Bankrate. Americans are struggling more than ever to keep up with the cost of living and are unable to put aside any money for their savings. Many have had to deplete their savings in recent months just to survive. Number 4, high credit card debt and delinquency. The state of credit card debt in the country is a sign of just how much Americans are struggling financially. The total credit card debt is the highest it has ever been, with over $1.1 trillion in credit card debt. Americans are facing a mountain of debt they may never be able to get rid of. The average credit card balance has had a steady increase in recent years and now amounts to over $6,000. As Americans are forced to live on credit, more and more people are falling behind and struggling to make payments on their debt. The New York Federal Reserve reported that over 9% of credit card balances transitioned into delinquency over the last year, a sign of just how stretched Americans are. Number 5, Americans are no longer eating out. For decades, the restaurant and fast food business in America has thrived, and some might even say that fast foods are part of the American culture. So when thousands of Americans are choosing to abandon their favorite fast food brands in favor of cooking their own meals, it shows just how much of a financial crisis everyday Americans are in. About a third of Americans say they've cut back on fast food, sit-downs, and delivery alike since the start of the year, and nearly half say they've been cooking dinner more at home over the same period, with 38% saying the same about lunch. As inflation and other factors in the country have reduced the purchasing power of consumers, most Americans are cutting back on dining out expenses as they can't keep up with the increasing cost. This trend is not only impacting the consumers but the fast food industry as well, as they struggle with higher operation costs, with most restaurants resorting to closing down shops and laying off employees. Number 6. The erosion of consumer purchasing power. As most of us have observed, there has been a serious decline in the purchasing power of Americans. A dollar today is worth less than it was a year ago in terms of purchasing power. Over the last few years, the United States has witnessed a significant shift in purchasing power. This is due to factors like inflation and stagnant wage growth. Wages have struggled to keep pace with rising prices in the country, which has led to a decline in real income and purchasing power for many Americans. An analysis of the trend of purchasing power since 2021 shows a steady decline. The purchasing power of our money today is 11% less than it was in 2021, with many Americans feeling the pinch as their paychecks now stretch less far than they had in previous years. Americans are now struggling to maintain their standard of living. The rising cost of living has outpaced the growth of wages, putting a massive strain on the wallets of everyday Americans. Number 7. The rising cost of housing. The rising cost of housing has outpaced the growth of incomes for decades, and today it's worse than ever. Having a roof over your head is fast becoming a luxury most Americans are finding hard to afford. Median house prices are 6 times the median income, when only a decade or two ago the median house price was somewhere between 4 and 5 times the median income. One of the reasons for the rising cost of housing is the shortage of houses. With a nationwide shortage of about 1.5 million housing units, it's no wonder home prices and rent have both increased by 26% and 47% respectively since 2020, and are expected to rise by at least 4% next year. The escalating rent and mortgage prices are a huge strain on Americans. More than half of renters have to spend over 30% of their income on housing. Many families have been forced to downsize or relocate as they're priced out of neighborhoods they once could afford, and homelessness is now at a record high. Number 8. Reliance on buy now, pay later services. Another trend that shows just how bad the financial situation of Americans is the reliance on credit to survive in the form of buy now, pay later services. Consumers are now relying on buy now, pay later services to be able to afford basic necessities. This new trend shows that many people are struggling financially and are unable to cover even basic needs without spreading out payments. The number of people using buy now, pay later to pay for purchases has risen by 17% year over year. In 2023, 15 million people used buy now, pay later to pay for groceries. And according to a survey, 56% of buy now, pay later users have experienced issues like overspending and missing payments. The reliance on credit to afford food and basic necessities is a sign of just how bad the financial situation of most Americans is. The need to buy now and pay later for essentials will likely lead to debt cycles and make things even harder for consumers in the future. Number 9. The car loan debt. The state of the car loan debt in the country is a major sign that things are not all right for the finances of Americans. Overall, Americans owe over $1.6 trillion in auto loan debt, accounting for 9.1% of American consumer debt. Car owners are falling behind on their car loan payments at a rate not seen in 13 years, driven by rising costs of cars and high interest rates on car loans. Household budgets have been hit by the combination of prices for vehicles soaring during the pandemic and the hike in interest rates. The cost of transportation is a real struggle for most Americans, and owning a car is a luxury most people are now unable to afford without going into debt. Number 10. Stagnant wage growth compared to rising expenses. The cost of necessities like groceries, rent, gas, and healthcare is increasing every day, and Americans are struggling as their wages lag behind. The prices of goods have surged by over 21% since 2020, and Americans are being forced into tight corners. Many households have reported that while their income had increased, their monthly expenses grew even more, making it difficult to save or invest for the future. According to the job search site Monster, 81% of workers don't believe their current wage has kept up with the rising cost of living. Inflation and wage stagnation are creating a significant financial strain for everyday Americans, and most are unable to save or invest. Workers are spending more and earning less, and because of the competitive state of the labor market, finding a good-paying job might be harder than winning the lottery. And just like that, we've come to the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and in case any of these signs we mentioned hit a bit close to home, just remember that you're not alone and millions of Americans are facing similar struggles. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with new videos. See you next time.